Hello everyone! Good afternoon! How are you today? I hope you're all doing great. By the way, this is Miss Anne, and today I am tasked to share with you what cognitive psychology is, or the brain-based learning. But before I formally begin with my discussion, I have prepared a simple activity for all of you. I need your participation here, and you need to be very attentive. Are you up for the challenge? Okay, the only thing that you have to do is to follow my instructions. And what are my instructions then? You have to use your right hand, use your finger to point onto that part of your face that I will be mentioning last. Again, use your finger to point onto that part of your face that I will be mentioning last. Are you ready? Now, let's begin. Ear, 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 nose. Okay, were you able to point onto your nose correctly? Or you copied me and pointed onto your mouth? Now let's try the next one. I, ear. This time, were you able to point onto your ear? Or you copied me again? Let's have the last one. Mouth, 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 eye. Okay, how about this time? Were you able to point onto your eye? Or you pointed onto your ear and copied me? Well, if you got 3 of them correctly, congratulations and thank your brain. This is, by the way, called the brain exercise. Thank you so much for your participation, and let's now move on to my discussion. See ya!
I will be sharing with you what I got from my readings about cognitive psychology or the brain-based learning. This discussion is divided into 4 parts. The first part is a brief history of brain-based learning. The second part is the description. The third part is to answer the question, how does it reflect in the K-12 curriculum? The fourth part is a summary of an educational research and article review regarding brain-based learning. To start, let's have first a diagnosis on how much we know our brain. Some kind of a trivia as well. Ready? Humans only use 10% of their brains. True or false? This statement is false. Research suggests that all areas of the brain perform some type of function. Brain imaging technologies have also demonstrated that the entire brain shows levels of activity even during sleep. It turns out, though, that we use virtually every part of the brain and that most of the brain is active almost all the time. Dehydration has nothing to do with learning. True or false? False. Dehydration can cause drowsiness and impaired learning. If the neuron or nerve cell is not challenged enough, they become impoverished and later dies. True or false? This statement is true. The best food for the brain is fish. True or false? Yes, this statement is true. The brain needs downtime after each subject. True or false? This statement is true. Downtime allows the new synapses that were formed to strengthen. People are either right-brained or left-brained. True or false? This statement is false. While experts do recognize that there is lateralization of brain function, that is, certain types of tasks and thinking tend to be more associated with a particular region of the brain, no one is fully right-brained or left-brained. In fact, we tend to do better at tasks when the entire brain is utilized, even for the things that are typically associated with a certain area of the brain. At this point, let's look back to where this all have started, a brief history of the brain-based learning. Very early on, scientists identified that left hemisphere of the brain as the primary biological locus for language and analytical thought. In 1861, Pierre-Paul Broca found evidence to link speech to a specific brain site. Comes 1874, Carl Wernicke found additional evidence linking language to the left hemisphere of the brain. In 1892, Jules Dejerin found that reading and writing deficits resulted from damage to the left hemisphere. These findings were extrapolated to mean that specific mental functions had precise locations in the brain. Vygotsky strayed somewhat from this dominant theory by proposing that functions such as language was more likely to involve neural processes distributed throughout the brain. He also proposed that neurological structures associated with mental functions were influenced and modified by the sociocultural environment. In the mid-20th century, Sperry and colleagues confirmed that the left hemisphere dominates language and analytical thought, provided a breakdown of psychological functions according to hemisphere, and showed that both hemispheres are involved in complex thinking. Comes 1967, Eric Lenneberg observed that loss of speech due to disorders in a language function became permanent after puberty. This suggested to Lenneberg that at puberty, the brain lost its ability to transfer language functions from the left hemisphere to the right hemisphere. And from there, he inferred that the critical period for language acquisition is before adolescence. In 1990, the neurobiologist Paul MacLean developed the triune brain theory, stating that we have three brains, each representing a separate evolutionary stratum and function, and controlling our emotions, thoughts, and behavior. In the last 3 decades, neuroscientists have obtained information on how the brain works from autopsies, experiments, and different types of scans, MRIs, EEGs, PET, or CAT. Results of the neuroscientific research are interpreted as having implications for improving teaching practices. There were really an evolution of theories from the different researchers, and the help of technology is also very significant in knowing how the brain really functions. Let us define the two terms I have in my report. What is cognitive psychology and its relation to brain-based learning? Well, cognitive psychology involves the study of the internal mental processes, all the things that go on inside your brain, including perception, thinking, memory, attention, language, problem solving, and learning. On the other hand, brain-based learning refers to teaching methods, lesson designs, and school programs that are based on the latest scientific research about how the brain learns, including such factors as cognitive development, how students learn differently as they age, grow, and mature socially, emotionally, and cognitively. To emphasize, brain is really the master of life. There are 12 core principles of brain-based teaching and learning, according to Kane and Kane. These are the following. Number 1. The brain processes multiple things in parallel. Number 2. The whole body is involved in learning, deliberately or unconsciously. Number 3. People have an innate need to seek meaning and make sense. Number 4. Finding patterns, giving identity, and giving structure helps people make sense. Number 5. Emotions are important in patterning. Number 6. The brain simultaneously perceives and creates parts or details and wholes or global concept. Number 7. Learning needs focused attention and peripheral perception. Number 8. The brain simultaneously involves conscious or remembering and unconscious processes or priming. Number 9. Humans have at least 2 important memory systems: spatial memory and rote learning memory. Number 10. Spatial memory is the strongest. People remember better when knowledge is embedded in spatial memory. Number 11. Challenge, promoted learning, and threat or lack of safety inhibits it. And lastly, number 12. All brains are uniquely configured and uniquely adaptable. How does it reflect in the K-12 curriculum? With such a wide range of scientific findings, it's clear that brain-based learning can take several forms. Schools and individual teachers choose the best approach to facilitate learning for their students. Let's say, for example, student stress could be reduced by playing calming music or arranging regular physical activities. Also, beanbag chairs or couches could replace the traditional sitting and studying and reading areas. The school encourages students to eat a healthier diet or to engage in more exercise, 2 factors that improve brain health. Schools are guided by the following principles. A healthy body promotes a healthy mind. Emotions are key to memory, meaning, and attention. Interaction with others benefit brain development. Teaching each other boosts memory. Memory improves through practice. Avoid long lectures. Make it meaningful. Moving information from short to long-term memory. And utilize humor, storytelling, movement, and games. In simpler words, the curriculum should reduce the stress of the students. But let's take a closer look at our own schools. Are these evident? Are these principles possible? Here's an educational research from Turkey. The title is The Effect of Brain-Based Learning on Achievement, Retention, Attitude, and Learning Process. The authors are Serap Tufekci and Melik Demirel. Their affiliations are Rusidia Social and Behavioral Sciences, Gazi University, Ankara, Turkey, Hacettepe University, Ankara, Turkey. The problem in the research study is there a significant difference between the basic level learning achievements of the groups to whom brain-based learning and the traditional learning approach has been applied? For the method, qualitative and quantitative research designs are used together in the research. Control group, pre-test and post-test experimental design has been used in the research. The achievement, retention, and attitude score averages of the students in the experiment and control group have been compared. Interviews have been conducted related to the research process in order to provide qualitative data. Let me give you a background of the research study. The participants in this study are third-year students at Gazi University. The researchers made use of basic level learning tests, open-ended questions for measuring higher level learning, and attitude scale in order to collect data. The research has continued during the academic term consisting 14 weeks. The participants were grouped into two. The control group, who experienced the traditional teaching, which is mostly straight lecturing and question and answer techniques, and the experimental group, whose teaching environment was designed according to brain-based learning approach, which is more on student-centered activities. The conclusion in the research study is that the brain-based activities have been effective on providing the retention of higher level learning. In the research, it has been seen that the difference of pre-attitude and post-attitude scores of the students in the group where the brain-based is applied is meaningful. The brain-based learning activities applied to the experiment group has increased the attitude of students' scores towards the lesson. Related to the brain-based learning environment, students have stated that content has been presented in a meaningful whole. Importance has been given to their feelings, and that they have had a rich learning life organized according to student preferences. Moreover, effective communication, sensitivity on individual differences, democratic attitude, active participation to the lesson, continuity of the lesson, and the variety approach in evaluation have been determined as the positive aspects of the approach. For my personal reflection regarding brain-based learning, I want to leave this statement that we have to make learning appealing by arranging the conditions for greater meaning.
So with my personal reflection, I would like to promise myself that I will continue making meaningful activities for my students to remember. I would also like to believe that learning takes place when there are patterns, graphic illustrations, and mental models, and when the materials are made meaningful. If I may share, you know what? I came to the point of realizing that the CPA approach I use in teaching math is somewhat based on the principles of brain-based learning. Because in the CPA approach, what we do is we let our students explore and discover. In the concrete stage, we ask them to make use of the manipulatives, the blocks, and the counters, explore them, and if they can already find an answer to the questions that are given. Once they are already getting the concept, we can proceed now to the visual representations, making use of photos, and solving questions regarding a problem. And for the abstract approach, that is basically the symbols, the numbers. If they are already good with the concept, that's the only time that we can proceed to making it abstract to them, like making use of the symbols per se. So it's just so sad that this time we can no longer make more concrete examples because we are not face-to-face set up, but we just make sure that sometimes what is readily available at home, we make use of them. So I hope still learning takes place even during this time of pandemic. I hope as well that my teaching methods are enough for me to impart knowledge to my students. So again, thank you for reaching the end of this video. I hope you have learned something from me today. Thank you and have a nice day.
For your report reflection, you need to cite and comment on one statement in my report, 3 sentences, and answer the question, have you applied this learning theory or teaching strategy in your class, and why? This will be for 4 sentences, and if you have not taught yet, explain how you can apply the learning theory or teaching strategy in your future class. This is again Miss Anne saying thank you to my references and thank you to everyone for listening.